3 months after my affair with my boss was revealed, my husband confronted me in the most devastating way imaginable. I never thought our marriage would end like this. 3 months earlier, my entire world had unraveled. My relationship with Greg, my boss, had gone beyond whispers in the office. It had become a full-fledged scandal. But nothing prepared me for the agony of seeing Jason, my husband, discover the truth. Jason had always been the epitome of kindness, support, and trust, and I had destroyed that trust in the most unforgivable way. Back then, I felt like I was moving through life on autopilot. I knew what I was doing was wrong, yet I justified my actions with excuses. I told myself I deserved the attention, the excitement that Greg brought into my life. Jason and I had been married for 6 years. Our relationship had started passionately, but over time, it felt like the spark had faded. Jason was consumed by his career, and I often felt overlooked. I longed for the kind of validation and connection that Greg eagerly offered. It all began innocently. Long nights at the office and casual conversations in the break room. Greg was magnetic, confident, and attentive, qualities Jason didn't show me anymore. He listened to my frustrations, laughed at my jokes, and made me feel seen. His attention was intoxicating, like a gust of fresh air in a stagnant room. Soon, our conversations shifted from work-related topics to personal matters. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, we had crossed every boundary. The physical aspect of our affair was unlike anything I'd experienced before. Greg was passionate and made me feel desired, a feeling I hadn't had from Jason in years. But no matter how thrilling it was, it didn't make it right. I was betraying my husband, the man who had always stood by me, the man who loved me unconditionally. Deep down, I knew I was making a terrible mistake, but in the moment, I convinced myself it was just a fleeting affair, something meaningless. Yet I couldn't ignore the truth. I was trapped in a mess of my own making, and it was only a matter of time before everything fell apart. That fateful Monday arrived. Jason had taken a day off work, but I had a meeting with Greg. We'd arranged to meet at a nearby hotel, a routine we had fallen into. I never anticipated what would happen next. As I sat in the hotel room with Greg, the sound of the door slamming open shattered the air. My heart dropped. Jason's voice, shaking, furious, and filled with disbelief, echoed through the room. "What the hell is this, Karen?" he roared. I froze. Greg sat across from me, his face pale with shock, clearly at a loss for how to react. Jason stood in the doorway, his usually composed demeanor replaced by raw anger. His face was flushed, and his eyes burned with betrayal. Jason," I stammered, barely able to form words. How could I explain this? How could I possibly justify shattering the life we had built together? "You're really doing this?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Is this what you've been doing behind my back? Sleeping with him? My own wife with my boss?" I stood, but Greg quickly brushed past me, escaping from the room without a word. I couldn't bring myself to move. I watched helplessly as the man I had risked everything for disappeared, leaving me alone to face the destruction I had caused. Jason's eyes no longer held any warmth. He looked at me as if I were a stranger. His voice, steady but dripping with pain, cut through the silence. "I don't even know who you are anymore," he said. "How could you do this to me, Karen? After everything we've been through?" I had no answer. There were no excuses left to offer, no words that could undo the damage I had inflicted. I had shattered everything. I had betrayed Jason in the most unforgivable way, and there was no way to undo what had been done. That night, Jason walked out. I stayed in the hotel room for hours, consumed by the enormity of what had just unfolded. The weight of my choices pressed heavily on me. This wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was the destruction of the life we had built together. And now it was over. In the weeks that followed, Jason and I barely exchanged words. I tried desperately to apologize, but he refused to hear me. He moved out of our home, seeking refuge with a friend while I was left alone to face the wreckage of my decisions. The affair didn't just tear apart our marriage. It began to unravel every aspect of my life. At work, whispers spread like wildfire. I became the target of office gossip, the woman who had let her personal mistakes ruin her career. The judgment was relentless, but none of it compared to the pain of losing Jason. I could see how much he was hurting, and knowing that I had caused it was unbearable. I missed him deeply, but I also understood why he needed space. He was trying to process the unimaginable, and I couldn't fault him for distancing himself. 3 months passed, and there was no sign of reconciliation. We exchanged occasional texts or emails, but his words were curt, and his anger lingered. The wounds I had inflicted were far from healed. Then, one evening, he called and asked to meet. My heart raced as I clung to the hope that this could be the start of mending the damage I had caused. We met at a quiet cafe. The moment I saw him, I knew he had changed. He looked drained, worn down by the weight of everything that had happened. I wanted to reach out, to hold him, to offer comfort, but I knew that wasn't why he had come. He needed answers. He needed closure. "You've had plenty of time, Karen," he began, his tone cold and unyielding. "I've tried to be patient, but I can't keep pretending everything's fine. The trust is gone. You've broken me, and I don't even know if I can put myself back together." His words sliced through me. My voice shook as I replied, "I know I've hurt you, Jason. I can't undo what I've done. I was lost, and I made the worst decision of my life. I never wanted to hurt you." He stared at me with a mixture of heartbreak and anger. "You hurt me the moment you started lying," he said. "The moment you chose to betray me with him." The tension between us was unbearable, filling every corner of the cafe. Then, out of nowhere, Jason stood and struck me. The sound of the slap echoed through the room, leaving me stunned. My cheek burned, and tears welled up in my eyes. I looked at him, hoping for some sign of regret, but there was none. His face was twisted in anguish, but he showed no remorse. "I don't think I can ever forgive you," he said, his voice raw with emotion. "And I don't know if I even want to try." Without another word, he turned and walked out, leaving me behind, paralyzed by the weight of my regrets. That moment was a breaking point. The physical pain was fleeting, but the emotional blow was devastating. Jason had reached his limit. He could no longer pretend or hope for things to go back to the way they were. In that instant, I knew our marriage was truly over. Life moved forward, but not in the way I had hoped. Jason eventually found someone new, while I tried to piece together the remnants of my life. The affair had cost me dearly. My marriage, my dignity, and my career. It taught me a painful truth. Some mistakes have consequences that cannot be undone. Every day I live with the reality of my actions. Betrayal leaves deep scars, and sometimes no apology, no matter how sincere, can repair the damage.